Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tea time. Okay, so today we're going to look at Legacy of the Void multiplayer update. So we're going to find out what has been going on in the world of StarCraft Legacy of the Void behind the scenes. And let's get right into it. First thing, half the mineral patches are 1500 and half are 750. So this creates the same amount of total in base minerals. The amount of minerals per base remains the same as the old Legacy of the Void from BlizzCon, but they alternate. So the question becomes, what do you mine out first? Do you mine out the 1500 patches? Do you drop your mules there, pair there? Do you prioritize that so that way you have the whole base longer, or do you get rid of the 750 patches quickly so that way you can be more efficient with your workers and need less workers? Also, gas is 75% of total. It used to be at about 70%, I think. I think it was exactly 70%. So it's going from 1700 to 1850 per geyser, which again shifts things more towards gas heavy things. And you could even do something like mine out the 750 patches first and have a really gas heavy income, which is super cool and interesting to me. The question is, where are the 1500 patches, where are the 750 patches? Are they the close patches, the far patches? We've already had a sort of, you can make a difference in mining the close patches first, but now the question becomes, if you mine the close patches, are those the 1500? Are they all on the left or the right, every other? How does it work? Asking Sion about that so we can incorporate it into Legacy of the Void custom. But really cool, interesting stuff overall. Worker count is my favorite thing on the planet of the Earth. I'm just kidding. But seriously, 12 workers is, to me, awesome. And they have messed around with a lot of, like it said here in this paragraph, messed around with a lot of other stuff. And 12 workers is really where you start making a decision. Even the first worker is a decision, which is awesome. So you can build as, like, for instance, as a Teran, you can build the supply depot right away to get into your barracks super fast. You can build a worker right away to, get that economy going and do a little bit less risk. You can even go for your gas first. You can do those things because it's more reasonable to get gas sooner because you have more workers on the minerals earlier. So it becomes this whole interesting thing, which is awesome. So game begins, you make a decision instantly, and that's awesome because you want to be making decisions right away, right from the beginning of the game. This automatic stuff that you just do, they're getting rid of that as much as possible. We're going to see a lot of that just in this update. Just a lot of this. Oh, this automatically happens. Just let's get rid of it. With one exception that I'm going to talk about a little bit later. So upgrades, they're looking at making the early game units more effective late game by having upgrades, but not having upgrades for the late game units, which are already effective late game when you build them. And it's a little bit less interesting because, again, no choice in it. If you're getting Ultralisks, you just get chitinous plating. You just do. It's crazy not to get it. And the upgrade takes, not all that much longer than the building of the Ultralisk itself. So it's like you just get it, and getting rid of that stuff for late game units is interesting. Makes carriers I think battle cruisers make battle cruisers a lot stronger because you don't have to get the energy upgrade or the Yamato cannon upgrade. You just get battle cruisers and they got Yamato, they've got extra energy, they've got all this stuff. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they just get rid of that upgrade and you start with 50 energy. Interesting stuff overall. I like it. Also, splitting up the mech and air upgrades, I really don't like that for playing Terran. But again, it sort of introduces, again, this tension between being efficient with your upgrades and going for air or going for mech. And that's something that the opposing player can also see. So as I click on the units, going for mech upgrades and not air, I'm going to have stronger, I'm going to be able to deal with Vikings better, for instance, that kind of a thing. Not really huge, just a little slight thing, but it does make it more of an option, more of a decision, which is really cool. onto the Teran Changes, they're not happy with their Herc. They're like, this is our Herc right now, but we're changing it because it's garbage. The thing that they're trying to do is distinguish it, at least that's what they say, is distinguish it from the Hellbat and make the grapple ability like necessary. Like you can't just throw in Hercs without grapple. The thing that makes them awesome is their grapple, you know, which is cool. I really like that. It's like a less extreme version of spellcasters, where it's like, yeah, if you don't cast spells with spellcasters, what the hell are you doing? Well, with Hercs, it's like, you know, they're a pretty good combat unit on their own, but they really shine and they're really cost efficient when you're using the grapple ability effectively. They no longer deal splash damage, which is, I think, a huge step in differentiating them from the Hellbat, which is a great move. I'd really like to see some sort of bonus to armor because the Hellbats are really good against light. Having something that's good against armor would be kind of cool. The flat damage already differentiates it, though, because then you do full damage, right? You do a lot of damage to queens and archons and things that usually just you can't get bonus damage against them, right? The idea of using the Herc specifically to band-aid the issue of Terrans not being ridiculously strong against Zerglings and Banelings and pushing the Zerg player into higher tech units, I don't like. Because it's too specific. I feel like, to me, it's more interesting to make awesome, fun units and, like, put them into the game and see what happens and adjust them accordingly, but not say, okay, we have X problem, we're going to create a unit specifically to solve this problem, and maybe it'll be useful in other areas too, and we'll deal with that later. I think first make the unit cool, then sort of see what applications it has. But that's my own thing. It's my own little design philosophy tangent. Banshee making going back to 6 range instead of 7, so seems cool. I think that the 7 range wasn't really necessary. It was sort of like, oh, okay, cool. Banshees are stronger, nice. But what they were seeing was that you need to build a lot more static D, which Brojack would be very happy about. So Brojack is very sad about the lack of needing more static D. But in general, I think it's cool. It's not really necessary. The cloak upgrade coming standard is that thing that never really got mentioned too much, but it's still the case. Cloak upgrade doesn't exist anymore. So they're getting rid of that upgrade. To me, that's kind of counter to their philosophy of having decision-based upgrades or upgrades that make units stronger later. It's really cool. Because are you going to go cloak banshees or are you going to go regular banshees? You're going to fake the cloak by getting Caduceus Reactor. There's an ancient upgrade that needs to be made useful or gotten rid of. Try to do it with Heart of Swarm, didn't work out. Maybe they'll try again. Maybe they'll get rid of it. We will see. Lurker Siege range no longer has a hive requirement. Pretty straightforward. I tried to stress this in the Legacy of the Void custom video, but Lurkers are a mid to late game unit, and not in the beginning of the middle game, but the end stages of the mid game. It's like, because before you could get it sooner because you already had the Hydra Den when you built your lair, and you could go right into the lair tech from there. But you need to build your lair, then you need to build your Hydra, then Den, then you need to build your Lurker Den, and you can build your Hydras while your Lurker Den is going, so you have a little bit of efficiency there, and then finally you morph, which I think takes somewhere between 15 and 20 seconds. So it takes a while to get Lurkers out, and there's a lot of investment there. So making the upgrade layer tech, I think, is fine, in that it's still a decision. 200 gas is a lot of gas. It's still something that you're going to feel and make a choice on, whether you want 4 more Hydras supporting your Lurkers, or you want the Lurkers to have range 2 minutes from now. It's like, whoa, I don't know about that. The Infestor ability, aggressive mutation, only really effective when combined with Zerglings. I strongly disagree with that. I think that's a case of not having tons of people testing, but only testing internally. It'd be really cool if this was... I understand why they don't put it into beta right now, but it'd be really cool if it was. Or maybe just like a closed beta, I don't know. I feel like the playtest testers, it'd be really cool if there were more of them. Because Hydras and aggressive mutation is awesome and super powerful. That being said, flat damage buff in an area of effect is not really that interesting. I don't think in general things that affect damage are all that interesting. Most of the game is damage. Most of the game is, more damage, less damage, stopping damage, health points versus damage, cost efficient. It becomes a sort of number grind. And I think that the Viper is a much more interesting spellcaster than the Infestor is. But we're going to get to the Viper in a second. But yeah, so, that being said, it's cool if they make a more interesting ability out of it. That's kind of all I have to say on it. But yeah, it is, get your aggressive mutation hydras in while you can, because they're ridiculous. They rip everything into tiny little pieces. Trying out ability on the Viper to help deal with large number of units. It's damage over time AoE to enemy air units. I'm not sure if this is like irradiate or not. I've read this paragraph, I don't know, 4 times, and I still don't have a grasp on it. Everybody derps, and I seem to be derping hard on these paragraphs. But I think that, again, damage isn't really that interesting. I think the Viper is such an interesting spellcaster in that it doesn't deal any damage. It is this battle manipulator. It forces things to move, or encourages things to move. Unlike the force field, which is like, it forces X to happen. Like Blinding Cloud's like, hey, if you stay in here, you don't have range anymore, so you should probably move. The Abduct is more of a, I'm going to get over here, get you. But then you still have that sort of dance with the High Templar and the Vipers, which I think is really fun and interesting, in the same way that Ghosts versus High Templar PvT is really interesting. But yeah, this makes me sad. Giving the Viper a damaging ability makes me sad. I think that it's much more interesting to keep it a battle manipulator, non-damaging spellcaster. But we'll see what ends up happening with that. Peras Changes, what the hell is this unit? Like, slow movement speed, harass? I get to differentiate from other harassers, and it's an early game, so it's not like you're going to have the Warp Prism early game unless you really go for it super fast. It does only cost minerals, and it builds relatively quickly, so you do like a 1-gate robo early harass unit with the Warp Prism might be kind of cool. I'm assuming it's going to come out of the gateway, because if it's a slow movement speed unit and it comes out of the robo, then like any sort of things you can get done early game with the Warp Prism and the slow unit is not really going to happen. It's going to be pushed out to at least the mid game. It's not really going to be an opener early game type thing. And then, doesn't add to the death ball, hopefully. And that's kind of the something they've been saying for a while, but something that really hasn't been happening is that they're not super happy with death ball play, and they want to discourage death ball play. So hopefully that will work. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on what will or will not get rid of death ball play, and it's sort of like whatever, right? Mothership Core Photon Overcharge ability hits ground and air. That's great because the Peras are having a really hard time getting expansions up. That sounds fantastic. I don't think it's a huge thing. Also, PvP Stargate was ridiculous in the current build because the Photon Overcharge didn't hit air anymore, and Oracles were really strong, and all this kind of stuff. So I think it makes PvP more interesting. More decisions are happening PvP with that kind of a change. Again, very slight, very change. And then Immortal Barrier was too strong, apparently, with the Warp Prisms. I think that Disruptors with Warp Prisms are insane. It's like nothing compared to the Immortal. And then making the Barrier an upgrade is sort of interesting. You have the Immortal, which is no longer this super scary unit on its own. You have to get an upgrade to make it the super scary unit. All right, this is my crazy idea, right? Put the Immortal in the Gateway. Woo! Give the Stalker like damage to light instead of armor, and put the Immortal in the Gateway. And move the Sentry to the Robo. Because the Immortal is a cybernetic unit, and the Sentry is a robotic unit. And it just makes more sense to have the spellcaster later on. It's like the earliest spellcaster in the game, I'm pretty sure. That's all. Thank you for joining, hanging in, tuning out, etc. I will see you next time on Tea Time.